The ghost ship appears. In the far edge of Sector 9, space was calm. Stars glowed quietly, and trade ships passed through in peace. For years, nothing strange had happened there, but today was different. A large black ship appeared near the Zalor 3 system. It made no sound. It sent no signals. It didn't move. It just floated in space, silent, like a ghost. No one saw it arrive. It was just there. The ship was unlike anything the aliens had seen. It was not Zalorian, not Zarnath, not any known design. It was too sharp, too cold, too dark. Then someone recognized it. "It's a human warship," whispered a Zarnath pilot. Gasps filled the command deck. A what? Human. The word alone caused fear. Everyone had heard the stories. Humans were ancient, powerful, and dangerous. They had left the galactic scene long ago after a great war. Since then, they were never seen again. But their warships still roamed like ghosts from the past. And there was one rule in the galaxy: never scan a human warship. No one really knew why. But the warnings were everywhere. Records showed strange disappearances. Ships that scanned human tech were never the same. Some vanished, others came back, but broken. Still, Commander Virek of the Zarnath Navy was not afraid. He stood tall on his ship, the shining fang, his long blue arms behind his back. He had fought many battles. He believed in science and logic, not ghost stories. "This is just a ship," Virek said calmly. "An old machine. Maybe it's damaged, maybe it's empty. We will scan it carefully." His crew looked nervous, but they followed orders. The scan beams charged up. Lights blinked on the console. Scanning in 3, 2, 1. The beam touched the human ship. And that's when things went wrong. First, the lights flickered. Then, the ship's main screen went black. "Commander, we've lost control of the scanner. All systems are glitching." "Something is inside our ship." Sparks flew from the control panel. The engines shut down. Emergency lights turned on, red and pulsing. Commander Virek grabbed the rail. "Shut it down. End the scan." "I can't," cried the technician. "It's scanning us now." Suddenly everything stopped. Total silence, no lights, no sound, no air movement, even the backup systems were dead. And then, a message appeared on every screen, just one line. "You were warned." Every crew member froze, their eyes wide, their hands shaking. "What was that?" someone whispered. No one answered. No one could. Outside, the human warship still didn't move. But now, it seemed, awake. 6 hours later, a rescue team from the Zalorian patrol found the shining fang drifting in space. No power, no signal, life support barely working. The crew was alive, but scared. When asked what happened, none of them could remember. Not clearly. They spoke of lights, strange dreams, and a voice that whispered inside their minds. Commander Virek sat quietly, staring at nothing. He said only one thing: "Never scan a human warship." The rescue team took them back for medical help. But the ship was left behind, floating alone. And the human warship? Still there. Still silent. Still watching. Across the galaxy, news spread fast. Everyone talked about it. Videos of the ghost ship appeared in every sector. Alien councils held emergency meetings. Old captains warned their people to stay away. Some believed the ship was just a leftover machine, a broken tool with an old defense system, but others believed something darker. That the ship was alive, that it had a mind of its own, that it remembered, and that anyone who tried to wake it would face the same end. Still, not everyone believed the stories. Some called it a trick. Some called it human fear propaganda, and some, foolish or brave, wanted to try again. They wanted to see how real the warning was. But one thing was now certain: the ghost ship had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. ChatGPT said the Galactic Council was in chaos. Rumors spread faster than light. An old human warship had appeared and someone had dared to scan it. Commander Virek's ship, the Shining Fang, had returned dark and broken. No damage on the outside, but the crew inside was shaken, silent and afraid. The official report said, no clear memory of incident. But off the record, whispers told another story. The crew spoke of a voice that wasn't a voice, of cold hands that weren't there, of a mind too large to understand. Across the galaxy, species gathered in fear. On the high clouds of Thaler Prime, noble rulers watched the footage over and over. In the deep oceans of Rethil 4, the Elder Minds sang warning songs. Even the mercenary fleets of the Varn Syndicate turned off their scanners near Sector 9. One message repeated through every station: do not scan the ship. But not everyone believed the warnings. Captain Tikal was young, proud, and curious. His people, the Julari, believed in progress. They laughed at fear. To them, the human stories were just myths from a violent past. Tikal had grown up hearing tales of the Great Human War, of ships that could burn stars and minds that could break planets. But he thought it was all legend. No real ship could do what they claimed. He sat in his command chair aboard the Silver Eye, watching the ghost ship's image hover in silence. The human warship was huge, black and jagged like a blade carved from darkness itself. No lights, no weapons showing, no movement. It looked dead. Tikal leaned forward, eyes locked. It's just an old machine, he said. All this fear, it's nonsense. We will scan it properly and end these stories. His second officer, Laurel, hesitated. Captain, the council forbids any contact, and you saw what happened to Vrek. Tikal smiled. Vrek used outdated systems. His scan was messy. We'll be careful, quick, clean. Laurel still looked uneasy, but orders were orders. The Silver Eye moved closer to the ghost ship. Not too close, just within safe range. The crew prepared the scan. Tikal watched as energy hummed through the control panels. The air felt strange, thicker. The silence outside seemed deeper than space itself. Begin scan, he said. The moment the beam touched the warship, the lights flickered, then a sound. Not from the speakers, but from everywhere. A soft voice, calm and cold, spoke in every crew member's mind. You have chosen poorly. The ship shook, but not from outside. It was as if reality itself shifted. Captain, systems are reacting on their own. Turning off the scan. No use. Controls not responding. The Silver Eye began to move. Slowly, then faster. Not flying, but pulled. Dragged by something invisible, toward the human ship. Engines screamed against the force, but nothing worked. Panic grew. Laurel shouted, "It's pulling us in. Reverse thrusters, emergency jump. Navigation is locked, we've lost guidance." Inside the bridge, screens turned black one by one. Then new screens lit up. Not part of the ship's system, these were not their screens. Strange symbols flickered, shifting into Julari language. Tikal stared at the largest one. It said, "This is not a ship, this is memory." Alarms began to wail. Weapon systems activated, but not the ones pointed outside. On the screen, weapon systems were locking onto the inside of the ship. Laurel gasped. "Captain, it's turning our weapons inward." Tikal stood frozen. What kind of ship does this?" No one answered. The lights turned blue, cold. The air smelled like metal and ash. The crew screamed as one by one, control stations went dark. Gravity failed, people floated. And just before everything faded, Tikal heard the voice again, right beside his ear. "Now you will see." And then, nothing. Only silence. Only the dark. But this time they were inside the ghost ship. And it was waiting. Darkness. That was the first thing Captain Tikal felt when he opened his eyes. Not just the absence of light, but a deeper kind, like being inside the mind of something ancient. He floated in the air, weightless, no sound around him, no sign of his ship or crew. Just an endless space filled with soft blue glow like stars hiding behind fog. He wasn't sure if he was dreaming or dead. Then he felt it. Pressure, not on his body but on his thoughts. Like something was watching him, not with eyes but with understanding. The air shifted and suddenly gravity returned. Tikal dropped hard onto a black floor that rippled like liquid and turned solid beneath him. He coughed and stood up slowly. He was inside the human warship. His eyes adjusted to the strange dim light. The walls weren't made of metal. At least, not any metal he knew. They pulsed faintly like they were breathing. He took a cautious step forward. As he moved, lights lit up ahead, guiding his path. It was as if the ship wanted him to walk, wanted him to see something. He followed. Behind him, others began to appear. Lorel, 2 engineers, a comms officer. All alive, all dazed, all confused. No one spoke, but everyone felt the same thing. This ship was not dead. It was not broken. It was aware. The hallway widened into a large circular room. Screens covered the walls, showing hundreds of alien ships and species, each labeled with strange symbols and flashing red marks. Some screens showed nothing but static. Others showed names with the word classified stamped over them. One screen changed as they stepped forward. It displayed their ship, the Silver Eye, spinning quietly in orbit just outside. Still there, but empty. The room changed again. Lights faded. A large screen appeared in the center. Words began to type themselves, slow and deliberate. You have entered a protected memory vessel. Then the words vanished. This vessel is not a ship. It is an archive. A guardian. A warning. More screens turned on. This time they showed images. War, fire, planets breaking apart, ships exploding, and strange symbols of old human fleets, moving through stars like angry gods. There were voices now. Human voices, angry, calm, cruel, tired. All overlapping. Tikal stepped back. What is this place? A voice answered, not from a speaker, but directly into his mind. You scanned us. You entered without understanding. Now you will learn. Suddenly pain shot through his head. Not pain like injury, but like too much knowledge being forced. And he saw visions. Human soldiers fighting on alien worlds. Massive battleships blocking suns, ancient councils begging for mercy. Then peace, then silence. Then the warship's promise. We will leave, but we will not forget. The crew around him cried out. One of the engineers collapsed, shaking. Lorel held her head, whispering, too much, too fast. Tikal clenched his fists. What do you want from us? The room dimmed. A section of the floor opened, revealing stairs going down, made not of metal but memory. Faint, ghostly images moved across the steps, shadows of past visitors, past victims. The voice returned. You are not the first, but you may be the last. The message was clear. The ship didn't want to destroy them. Not yet. It wanted to show them something. Maybe even test them. But why? Why them? Tikal took a deep breath and started down the steps. Because whatever this ship remembered, it was about to share. And not everyone would survive seeing it. The steps led into silence, but not the kind found in empty places. This silence felt heavy, as if every footstep disturbed something ancient and listening. The deeper Captain Tikal went, the colder. It became not the kind of cold that froze skin, but a cold that settled in the bones like stepping into a forgotten tomb. Behind him, Lorel and the others followed, their eyes wide, their movements cautious. No one spoke. There was a strange understanding between them now. The ship was alive, and it was leading them somewhere with purpose. The hallway at the bottom opened into a vast chamber unlike anything Tikal had ever seen. The walls stretched up into darkness, covered in smooth black panels. Each panel lit up as he passed, showing brief flashes of data, alien ships, faces, code, maps, and dates. The air smelled old, but clean, like a place untouched for centuries. In the center of the room stood a large circular console, floating slightly above the ground, surrounded by what looked like transparent data columns. As Tikal approached, the console pulsed and the room shifted. The floor beneath them vanished for a moment, replaced by swirling images, not holograms but memories. They stood in a battle from the past, surrounded by burning ships and screaming voices. The memory passed through them like wind, fast and sharp. Then it was gone, and the floor returned. Tikal staggered. The ship was showing them history, but this was not history written by victors. This was preserved pain. One of the transparent columns flickered and zoomed in. A single file opened on its own, labeled in the ship's own strange language. Then slowly the symbols translated into something they could read. Species that scanned us. Laurel stepped back, her hand trembling. Captain, this is a graveyard. Dozens of alien names flashed by, most unfamiliar, some long extinct. Each file opened with a scan attempt, followed by what came after: system failure, mental collapse, sometimes total planetary silence. One entry showed a planet-wide blackout. Another displayed a fleet torn apart from the inside, crews turning on each other, driven mad. The warship hadn't fired a shot. It had simply remembered, and that memory had been enough. Tikal's name appeared next. He stared at the screen. His species listed, his ship, his crew. Status, under observation. He clenched his jaw, heart pounding. "Why are you doing this?" he asked aloud, though he wasn't sure if he expected a response. The lights dimmed again and a new file opened. This one wasn't labeled. It didn't need to be. It showed Earth, blue and green and alive. Then the wars began. It wasn't one war, but many. Some started by humans. Most started by others. The humans responded with overwhelming force, not out of hate, but survival. They learned quickly, too quickly. Every defeat became a weapon. Every pain became a pattern. And then, silence. They had won. But they didn't celebrate. They built ships like this one, not to fight, but to remember. To keep the peace in the most terrifying way possible. A warning, drifting through space. One last voice spoke then. Human, calm, male. Not a machine voice, but something real. You wanted to know what we were, what we are. Now you do. The lights turned red for a moment, then yellow, then soft blue again. The ship had shown them the truth, and now it was watching, waiting to see what they would do with it. Laurel whispered. They never left. They just made sure no one would follow. Tikal stepped back from the console, his mind spinning. This was more than a message. It was a test, and they were now part of it. Somewhere above them, the silver eye still floated, empty. But here below, inside this vessel of memory and warning, the true shape of humanity was becoming clear. And it was nothing like the stories. It was worse. It was real. Captain Tikal couldn't tell how long they had been inside the ship. Time bent strangely here. Minutes stretched into hours, or maybe seconds. The deeper they moved through the vessel, the more it felt like walking inside a mind, not metal corridors, but thought given form. The walls now whispered softly, not words, but echoes of old commands, old pain, old victories. None of it made sense to anyone except the ship. It wasn't guiding them anymore. It was watching how far they were willing to go. The crew was down to 4. One of the engineers had collapsed during the last memory surge, his mind overloaded by whatever the ship had shown him. They had to leave him behind, placed gently in a corner where the floor folded around him like arms, holding him without harm. It was terrifying how gentle the warship could be when it chose to be. Tikal pressed forward, past another door that opened without touch. Inside was a smaller chamber, colder, tighter. The ceiling pulsed dimly overhead, and a strange shape floated in the center, an object that looked like both a weapon and a heart. It wasn't attached to anything, it just hovered, wrapped in slow-turning light. Laurel stared at it and whispered, "What is that?" A voice answered, not loud, not sharp, but deep, like thunder far away. Origin. The crew froze. The object pulsed once, and suddenly they were no longer in the room. They were standing in another memory. No warning, no shift, just instant change. Around them, a human stood alone, staring into a council of frightened alien leaders. He was old, scarred, tired. His voice echoed through the chamber like wind through ruins. We built the warships not to fight, but to end the fight. To survive, yes, but also to end the pattern. Behind him, dozens of ghostly human warships hovered above worlds, silent and still. We knew fear would last longer than trust, so we left these behind, not as weapons, as stories. The memory faded. They were back in the chamber. The object still floated in place, waiting. Tikal stepped closer, though every part of his body screamed at him to stop. "What happens if we touch it?" he asked. The ship responded instantly. "Then you become part of the memory." The idea sank deep into him. This ship had been gathering minds, testing them. Some failed, some vanished, and some were kept. Lorel backed away. "Captain, we've seen enough. We need to leave." But Tikal couldn't move. The knowledge, the weight of it had hooked him. This wasn't just history, it was a warning written in pain. It was the raw truth, something no archive, no council, no species had ever dared show. He raised his hand slowly. The object responded, rotating faster, light wrapping around his fingers like threads. Then came the voice again, softer this time, almost kind. "Will you carry it or will you fear it?" He froze, because he finally understood what the ship was doing. It wasn't punishing those who scanned it, it was offering something. But not everyone could take it, and those who did were never the same again. The moment Captain Tikal's fingers brushed the floating object, everything shattered, not physically, but within his mind. The room dissolved, his body vanished, and he was no longer himself. He was every human, commander who had stood before a dying star, every soldier who had made the final call, every scientist who had watched their creation grow beyond control. He wasn't watching history anymore. He was inside it. 1,000 lives poured into him at once, memories stacked like glass, sharp and bright. He felt what they felt. Fear when they first encountered species far older than their own. Fury when their peace was broken. Cold calculation when they realized the galaxy did not welcome balance. It respected fear. That's when the warships were born, not built with joy or pride, but necessity. Each vessel wasn't just a weapon. It was a sealed story, a recorder of truth meant to haunt the future. Not by destroying worlds, but by making others remember what happened when humans were pushed too far. Then came the silence. Tikal gasped as he fell back into his body. The chamber returned. The object no longer floated. It had turned gray and still, like a task completed. Behind him, Lorel reached out to steady him, but she looked at him differently now. Not with concern, but with caution. "Captain, what happened to you?" He tried to speak, but the words weren't his anymore. They were layered with echoes, memories not his own. It took effort just to return to his voice. They didn't want revenge. They wanted the cycle to stop. This ship, it's the answer and the threat. The walls around them dimmed. A soft sound began, like a heartbeat slowing down. And then, the ship began to change. Passageways shifted, doors sealed. Lights shut down one by one as if the vessel was going back to sleep. The crew felt it. They were being released. Not with anger, not with warning, but with purpose. The test was over. They followed the fading. Lights back through the halls, now dim and still. The silence was peaceful this time. No more whispers, no more pressure, just quiet understanding. When they reached the docking bay, the way to the Silver Eye was open. The ship floated beside, the human vessel, untouched, unharmed. But when they looked back, the warship was gone. Not jumped, not cloaked. Gone, like it had never been there at all. Back on the bridge, The crew sat in stunned silence. No one spoke. No one moved. Lyrell checked the logs, sensors, systems. Nothing. The ship had left no trace, except one, a new file, encrypted, marked only with a symbol, a human eye, half closed, watching. Tikal opened it. Inside was a single line. Those who remember cannot. Repeat. He leaned back in his chair. For the first time, he understood why the Galactic Council feared scanning the human warships. It wasn't because they might be attacked. It was because the truth inside them changed who you were. Forever. He looked at his reflection in the black glass of the console. And for a second, the reflection wasn't him. It was someone else. A human. Smiling sadly. Long after the encounter, the silver eye drifted through the void, silent and changed. Captain Tikal stood alone in the observation chamber, staring out at the stars that now felt colder, more distant. The galaxy hadn't changed, but he had. His crew avoided his eyes. Not from fear, but from the quiet discomfort of standing near someone who had touched something no one was meant to touch. The encrypted file remained unopened by anyone else. Tikal had memorized every word. He didn't need to read it again. When they returned to council space, the debrief was brief and hollow. Tikal spoke plainly. He described the ship, the scan, the memory, the warnings. But he left out the choice he made, what he touched, what he absorbed. Some truths weren't meant for reports. The council listened, nodded, and then quietly marked the region around Sector 9 as restricted. Not officially, not openly, but completely. Ships were rerouted, patrols were warned, and scanners were ordered to power down if anything unusual, appeared on long-range sensors. The council didn't argue, because they had already known. Or at least, suspected. That was the real reason no one dared scan a human warship. Not because they were afraid of being attacked, but because deep down, they feared what they might learn, what would be shown to them, what would stay with them. In the weeks that followed, whispers spread quietly through the outer systems. A Julari captain had gone into the ghost zone and returned. He looked the same, but something behind his eyes didn't. He stopped attending official events, stopped giving interviews. His ship was docked and locked, not damaged, just finished. And still, every night, Tikal would sit in the dark and feel the memory vessel watching him, even from light years away. He began to dream in other voices. He began to remember events he had never lived, and sometimes, when he looked at the stars, he knew what parts of them had already burned. Years ago, in silence under human shadow. Some say he became a warning himself, a living echo of the ship's message. He never denied it. He simply offered the same advice to anyone who asked what he saw. Don't scan the human warships, not because they'll destroy you, but because they'll let you see. And that is always worse. Because once you see the truth, the lie of safety never fits the same again. In the far edge of the galaxy, the human ship still drifts, quiet, waiting, not hunting, not hiding, just remembering. And if you find it, if your curiosity burns too bright, it will show you everything, then it will let you go and the real story will begin.